So I'm Inspector Bruce Walker of the Major Crimes Section, and this is Alvin Murray from Bylaw. I'll just read out a press release here and then answer any questions afterwards. Is that good? The Calgary Police Service continues to investigate after an officer shot an aggressive dog during a traffic stop last night in northeast Calgary. At approximately 8 p.m., a Calgary Police Service traffic section member was conducting a traffic stop on a vehicle alleged to have been speeding. When she became suspicious about the occupant's activity, the member believed that she smelled marijuana and decided to further investigate. She called for backup, and an officer from District 4 arrived at the scene in the 1400 block of 52 Street Northeast. Prior to searching the vehicle, the female member asked the male suspect about the dogs. The indication from the suspect was that the dogs would be fine and would not bother the officers while they conducted the search. This interaction was captured on an in-car camera in the police vehicle. At some point during the search, one of the 3 dogs jumped out of the vehicle through the open door and lunged at the second officer, biting him in the abdomen area. The officer pulled his service-issued weapon and fired at the animal, striking it in the head area. The dog ran from the area and was later tracked down and transported to a nearby veterinary clinic. The dog remains at the clinic under veterinary care. The member who was bitten was wearing a protective vest and was uninjured. Investigators are currently working to secure a warrant on the vehicle to continue the search. This is expected to be completed later today. The drug investigation continues. As a standard procedure, when a member fires their weapon, the CPS Major Crime Section will investigate. Any questions?
There's just one shot fired.
As part of the investigation, I can't disclose that.
And speaking with one of the people in the car, she told us that she informed police that the dog was mean and that her boyfriend did too. Is that not what police understand what happened?
Well, as the traffic officer approached the vehicle, actually approached the vehicle twice. The first interaction, there was no signs of any aggression from either of the 3 animals. She actually extended her hand, in which the dog had sniffed her hand. She then disengaged from the vehicle, went back, spoke to the owner of the animals, and said, "Was there any concern with the search or with the animals in question?" At that point, the owner of the animals indicated that the animals should be fine. So based on that interaction, the first interaction, as well as a statement from the owner of the animals, then she decided to continue the search.
Why wouldn't police, this is a question from her again, why wouldn't police wait until animal control came to take the dogs away before searching the vehicle?
You know what? At the time, as I explained, due to the first interaction with the animal, there was no indication of any aggressive activity. From the statement provided by the owner of the animals, who stated that the animals should be fine. The officer was in the execution of her duties, conducting a search. The second time upon the approach, she was continuing the search. Approximately 15 to 20 seconds later, it was then that the dog became aggressive and actually jumped out of the vehicle past the traffic member, engaging the secondary member.
Okay, so it comes as a surprise that one of the people says that they tried to warn police not to open the door?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
This woman says she tried to warn you and told, well, you, sorry, sir, tried to warn police not to open the door. I'm just repeating what she's telling us.
Okay.
That doesn't jive with what you've learned of your investigation so far?
From the investigation, in looking at it, I know that investigators did interview both parties. At no time from those interviews did one of the occupants indicate not to open the vehicle. In an earlier statement from one of the occupants, she stated that the dog, lack of a better word, could be a jerk or mean. But due to the first interaction by the member with the dog, as well as asking the owner of the dog, who was the other occupant, is there any concern with your dogs? And he had stated, being the owner, that the dog should be fine.
So,
Go ahead, sorry.
so the interaction with the police officer, that
No. Upon the second approach to the vehicle, continuing with the search, at that point, the cover officer, who was in behind the female officer, and I don't know the exact distance, but at that point, and again, an estimation, we're talking, 15 to 20 seconds, the door was open, the dog jumped out past the female member who was actually conducting the search and went after the cover officer who was not engaged with the vehicle.
Just to clear something up, the officer that was bitten is the one that shot the animal?
Yes, the one that was being attacked by the dog is the one who.
And then the earlier report that the dog jumped out of the window as opposed to past the door, does that have any bearing on any type of investigation into an aggressive animal?
Yeah, so I think what happened there is that, anytime scenarios like this come in, obviously with the investigation, the traffic stop, the drug investigation, once a service weapon is discharged in the line of duty, that becomes the primary focus. We shut down the scene and we disengage from it. Everything else becomes secondary. Anytime these events unfold, we try to get the best information at the time of the incident, and early indication that was the information. Once we bring investigators in to start the investigation, then we're able to provide more detail as to the scene, actions of all those involved, what have you.
So the final question for me, and maybe one for a while after, but your investigation is into the discharging of a firearm. Is that ongoing, or is it the investigation into the stopping and the search for marijuana? Is that ongoing as well?
Yeah, so both investigations right now, as part of our protocols, is that weapon will be seized from the officer. Anytime we get into an incident where a service weapon is discharged at an aggressive animal, we look after obviously those people involved, including the officer. All efforts were made to find the animal, secure it, get it to veterinary care as soon as possible. From there, like I said, both investigations are separate, but both are continuing.
Who pays for the vet care?
That's a good question, and I can't answer that.
It's the town, or if they have any sort of.
I'm unaware. I'm unsure.
I just wanted to be clear, so the female officer was actually, she approached the car twice and she was actually starting and doing a search with none of the dogs reacting, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So she was engaged first.
So she would have been digging around in the car.
So she was engaged she actually opened the door, put her hand in. On the first encounter, the dog actually sniffed her hand. There was no indication of any aggressive behavior. Disengaged, went back, spoke to the owner of the animals, then re-engaged with a backup. And at that point, the door was opened, and it was approximately 15 seconds later. Then the dog became aggressive, jumped out past the female officer, and went after the cover officer.
And it was between those two that the one, see, we were told she owned the dog too, but anyway, after the first one, before the second incident, that's when you were aware that black dog could be a jerk. Is that
Yeah, so my understanding, and like I said, this has now become speculative and somewhat hearsay, but just based on looking at the investigation and the interviews, at no time did the, as you call it, the female occupant make any indication for the officers not to open the door. The female officer had one of the occupants in her police vehicle, went back, had conversation with that individual, who was identified as the owner of the animals, and at that point, the question was asked, how are the dogs? And he said they should be fine.
Could the owner of the dog be charged at all for not being able to control their dog?
That's something I'm unable to speak to, and I'll have to refer to Alan for that.
Do you guys have any more for Bruce, or do you want? Are there criminal, what sort of, is there a speeding ticket that was issued out of this, or there?
So as part of the investigation right now, like I said, the primary investigation right now is looking into the shooting aspect of it. Anything with regards to any traffic offenses or possible criminal charges is still under part of the investigation.
How far away was the police officer from the shot?
That I'm unable to speak to.
And can you talk about what kind of footage was obtained from the in-car camera?
I can't get into specifics of that as well as part of the investigation.
Okay. And
And the type of vehicle, is that a truck that the animals were?
That I'm unable to answer. I'm not sure. So-
And the dog was taken to
Yeah.
vet by, it was under police escort or something?
That I'm unknown.
Anything else for Bruce? There were 2 occupants in the car, or in the truck, or sorry, SUV.
My understanding that is correct.
Last chance. Anyway, excellent.
Okay.
What happens with the dog?
So currently the dog is at a local veterinary practice. The animal has had some surgery, and the indications are from the veterinarians that the animal will survive.
And it
What
will be
happens
fine?
with the dog? Like, will it be evaluated as an aggressive animal?
Well, what'll happen after the dog is deemed to be healthy enough to be released from the veterinary clinic, it will come into our possession. At that point, we will be doing our investigation. We will be doing an assessment on the animal, and at that point, then we will determine what action we take.
Which could, I'm sorry.
Could it be a danger, I mean, would you be looking at whether this dog is a dangerous canine?
It's too early at this stage. We're very early in the investigation. I mean, as you know, it's not even 24 hours old yet. So there's been no assessment done by our experts on the animal, but it is a possibility.
Could the owners be charged? This is the same question I asked, just for not being able to control the dog.
Again, too early in the investigation to say whether there positively will be charges, but yes, that is a possibility.
Do you know if the dog's licensed, if it's male, female?
I don't know whether it's male or female, but yes, it's licensed.
And have you had any sort of issues dealing with this dog in the past? Something like that?
Yes, we do have history with this particular animal.
So far as what types of things?
At this point, I'm not willing to discuss what the previous were, but it will be part of this ongoing investigation into the aggression.
So the history involves certain aggression?
Correct.
Is it a pit bull?
That is correct.
Any more for
This is
Alvin?
a fairly unique situation for you guys when you're dealing with a dog that's not a large being aggressive. Have you ever had a scenario that you can think of similar to this?
Not similar with a shot being fired, but yes, we deal with animals that are aggressive, which are secured.
What about the other 2 dogs? Were those returned to the owner?
Those were returned early this morning to the owner. The owner came and picked them up.
Do you know how old this dog is, if it's young or if it's old?
I don't.
How do you spell your name, sir?
First name is Alvin, Alvin. Last name is Murray, Murray.
So is it possible, and I know it's early on in the investigation, but is it possible if we do look at sort of whether this dog is deemed dangerous, is it possible this dog could end up, you guys could be seeking an order that's been designed?
Well,
Have you ruled that out?
it's possible. That would be a decision for the courts. Animal and Bylaw Services does not have the ability or the authority to go ahead and.
Make those recommendations and you push for
That
it.
is-
Is it
that is
possible
correct.
in this case?
Again, too early in the investigation to say whether that's going to be the outcome or not. But in any case of aggression, we take all aggressive dogs seriously, and that is one possibility.
When do you anticipate the dog will be under the vest?
We don't have any indication from them as to when it will be ready to move.
And when you say the dog is going to survive, like is it, will it be fine in regards to it won't be missing eyesight?
No, as far as I'm aware, from the reports we got this morning, there's no neurological damage that they can see. They were checking into the eyesight because the bullet pierced underneath the eye, but the early indications are it will be fine.
So full recovery kind of thing?
Correct.
Thank you.
Why were the other 2 dogs taken to the facility? Was there an issue with the other 2?
Well, typically what happens is when we assist Calgary Police Service, it's called safekeeping. So in an incident like this, where obviously Calgary Police would be dealing with the occupants of the vehicle, someone has to take care of the dogs. So the dogs would be taken to our facility, and they would be held there for safekeeping until such times as the owners can come and pick them up.
Do you know what kind of dogs these were?
I don't.
What is your title at Animal Bylaw?
I'm the manager of operations for Animal and Bylaw Services.
You guys good?
Yes.
Okay.